You kindly ask also to turn down your phone, turn off your phones, because they might disturb the mics. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further gilding the lily, join me please in welcoming to the podium the Honorable Premier, Mark A.G. Brantley.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you again for being here for another of these monthly press conferences. I want to thank in particular my cabinet colleagues and the prominent secretaries who are here. Also, of course, the members of the press and other invited guests. Thank you very much for attending. I start, as I often do, with expressing some congratulations. I think we had a wonderful celebration of our 35th anniversary of independence. I want to thank all of those who worked extremely hard to make it happen. I'm especially pleased that we were able to have what is, I'm told, is the largest parade that we've seen in recent times. And we were also able to have the cocktails, the annual, usual cocktails for independence celebrated at Government House. As we all know, Government House has been shuttered for a very, very long time. This government took a decision about 2.5, 3 years ago to try and restore that. And I am very happy that we were able to have the cocktails there on the grounds. And I think it brought back a sense for many of how things used to be. And so the hope would be that Government House will continue from strength to strength. I can't mention Government House without expressing gratitude to our Deputy Premier, the Honorable Alexis Jeffers, because he and the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation were tasked with restoring that building. And I think they've done a fantastic job. It isn't yet complete. We have some minor works yet to do. But the expectation is that with a brand new Deputy Governor General and a brand new and restored Government House, we should be in good stead. And so my hope would be that we see, as we used to in the past, the children going there, having their picnics, people being invited there, because it is in every sense the embodiment of Nevis and Nevisian government. And so we're very pleased about that. The feedback has been excellent. People seem to have been really happy. I want to thank all the contractors who came on board very late and pushed to make it happen, and I think that was good. One of the highlights was the lighting up of the Bath Hotel, and I think many people were thrilled to see the Bath Hotel lit up in our national colors. I want to say it's one of these ideas that came to me very early in the morning. Instead of sleeping, I'm thinking about these things, and I called the only man I could have thought of was Vaughan Ansley, and he delivered really in spades. And I think that I saw that photo of so many places, even in the United States. I saw people there, locals, of course, Kittitians and Nevisians. They were really, really enamored with that idea. And perhaps it gives us the idea going forward to do more of that. It's actually a cheaper form of decoration. You turn the lights on and turn them off. So I hope that we will move in that direction. I want to congratulate the Independence awardees, Mr. Ralph Otley and Mr. Urban Jones for construction, entrepreneurship, Mr. Aldine Sandy Claxton and Mr. Claude Kaki Nisbet. In the marine industry, the one and only D. Alistair Paris. Music, Ms. Joya Clark. Nursing, Nurse Ermin Hendrickson. Religion, Pastor Eric Maynard. And sports, Mr. Vincent Sensi Maynard. I think that these were excellent choices, people who represent the best in us, and I want to congratulate them again. I also want to congratulate our former police commissioner, Mr. J. Calvin Foy, for receiving the Companion of the Star of Merit for his contribution to policing and community service. This, of course, is a national award, not a Nevisian award, but a national award. I also want to congratulate Antonio Abernathy Library and Mr. Clifford Ginger Walters. They were the two honorees for this year's NEVDC banquet that was recently concluded on the 29th of September in Washington, D.C. And we congratulate, of course, Ms. Lyra Richards, who was the keynote speaker at this event. Since I'm in the congratulation mood, of course, we want to congratulate the organizers and winners of the recently held Community Festival in St. Thomas's, the St. Thomas Fete. I see some names here. I see Dondra Fleming, and of course, Daddy Nature and Invincible, all of whom were part of the celebration of our culture there in St. Thomas's. Let me take a moment, ladies and gentlemen, to congratulate our new Principal Education Officer, Miss Zanella Claxton. Ms. Zanella Claxton, as we know, has a wide experience in education, both at the level of how should we call it, the junior level, all the way up to adult education, early childhood, let me get the proper language, early childhood to adult education. She holds a master's degree in adult education from Texas A&M in Texarkana, Texas, and she's been deeply involved in education in the United States. I think she's an excellent choice, someone with the necessary skill set, the necessary training, and she's clearly passionate about education. I want to congratulate Ms. Claxton on her elevation to this role as Principal Education Officer. We know it's a difficult role, it is an important role, and we trust and hope that she will do well in that role. And we thank, of course, Minister Troy Liburd, who leads the Ministry of Education day to day, and his able prominent secretary, Mr. Barrett, for this choice. I also, of course, would like to take a moment to congratulate and thank Mrs. Pawsey Wilkin. Mrs. Wilkin, as we know, toiled in the vineyards of education for some 44 years. 44 long years. And so most of us in this room would have been in some way touched by Mrs. Wilkin and the efforts that she would have made. When she had retired and taken her well-deserved rest, we called on her yet again. And it is instructive that based on what I gather, she would serve for 12 years as an education officer, and then for 5 years as a principal education officer. Long after she should have been retired and relaxing, we called on her and she came and she gave of her service. And we have to congratulate and thank her. There are no words really that I can express to demonstrate the depth of gratitude for her contribution to education. 44 years. And I want the island to applaud Mrs. Pawsey Wilkin for her considerable effort in this regard. Even now I gather she is still being called upon to assist, and she has willingly indicated that she is minded to continue to assist because clearly education is in her blood. That is her lifelong ambition and calling. They tend to say education is not a job. Teaching is not a job, it's a calling. So I really want to go on record to express our deep gratitude to Mrs. Wilkin for her service, and to say that she ought to be an example to all of us as to what public service should look like, and what we hope at the end of our own careers others will say of us, that we served long, we served well, and we contributed to the development of our country. We, of course, had the swearing-in of the Deputy Governor General on the 31st of August 2018, just a few days after the last time we were here, and I am delighted that Her Honor Mrs. Hailita Liburd seems to have captured the imagination of the Nivision public. I think people seem to be on all sides happy with the choice, and it suggests to me that we are doing something right if you can get good people like these to serve in these positions. We did have a meeting with the Taiwanese ambassador on the 4th of September regarding assistance with the National Park at Pinnis, and I'm delighted that they've indicated their willingness to assist. I know the public has grown tired of hearing us talk about this national park, but I do believe that we have now some momentum, and I'm hopeful that we'll get that done. They brought a large delegation here, including several experts in parks and park developments, and we are hopeful that we'll have the design finalized and be able to push forward with that national project for the people of Nevis, and more widely for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. We are very grateful that as part of our independence celebrations, we had our Free National Heroes concert in honor of our national heroes, but also to honor Stephen Grizzly Nisbet. And that was held on the 16th of September. We had two big bands, Third World and Steel Pulse, on stage, along with some local artists. I'm delighted that thousands of people came out. God was good to us. The weather held. Thousands of people came out, and most importantly for me, people had a good time, and it was incident-free. The security forces are very happy. And there were no incidents at all. Maybe it's a type of music, but it was conscious music, promoting peace, promoting togetherness, promoting love, and I think that people had a good time, and I'm grateful for the support of the cabinet and the support of all who engaged in this and to make this possible. We also went the day later, and in the area of Brickhill, we were able to unveil a sign, which is really a mock-up of what we hope eventually to be there, which we are intending to use to honor the memory of Stephen Grizzly Nisbet. And just so I can take a minute, many people have asked, well, who is this Grizzly Nisbet, and what is the relevance of him? I think it's important that we, as a country and as an island, start to recognize those among us who excel. and to recognize that those among us to excel can oftentimes be the catalyst for others to excel. And I keep going back to it because I think she put it best. Her Honor Hailita Liebert said a youngster asked her, "How come you get this big job as Deputy Governor General?" And she indicated that she just did the best that she could do, toiling as she did in the vineyard of education, and somebody must have been watching. And I think that that is instructive for all of us. Many of us go about our day-to-day business, and we may not recognize that somebody is watching. And I think that that kind of story encourages us all to do the best we can. Steve Grizzly Nisbet would have left Nevis as a youngster, moved to England, and whilst in England learned to play the drums and became a part of what was then one of the most famous reggae bands of all time. In fact, multiple Grammy award-winning band, Steel Pulse. And I think it's important that we in this little island of Nevis continue to recognize that greatness has come from Nevis. There is greatness still in Nevis. And wherever we find it, we ought to celebrate it. So I am not as fussed with people who say, "Oh, well, we never know who his name was." Well, now you know. Now you know that he was an iconic drummer, musician, and that he helped put Nevis on the map. In fact, as I myself try to reacquaint myself with the history of Mr. Nisbet and the Steel Pulse Band, I recognize that, in fact, one of their famous albums was dedicated to St. Kitts and Nevis on the occasion of our independence in 1983. So there has always been that connection, and I thought that the band members, led as they are by Mr. Hines, I thought that they were quite gracious. And I want to thank again the Deputy Premier, because we're calling him to come up with something, given the short time that we had. And I was very pleased, and the band members appeared very pleased that we were able to do that and have the unveiling. So I think that went extremely well. They seemed very happy about that. We also had the unveiling, of course, of the national heroes, the statues of our national heroes in St. Kitts at the National Heroes Park. And I mention it because amongst them, of course, are two Nevisians. Mr. France, who spent and contributed most of his life to St. Kitts, but nevertheless, he's been recognized as a national hero. He's from right here, I believe, in the parish of St. James, if memory serves. And then we also have, of course, Sir Simeon Daniel, who was our first premier, and who hails from Barnscott, but has also been named as a national hero. And we had the unveiling, of course, of all five, 4 deceased and 1 living national hero, Sir Kennedy Simmons. And that event was on the 17th. The cabinet did attend to show our support. The independence, just a final word, if you will, on that, we had an unusual and interesting development. Because as we know, independence is celebrated on the 19th, and it has been a tradition that the celebrations happen in St. Kitts and in Nevis at the same time. I myself have never been able to attend an independence parade in Bastia, because of course I'm minded to attend the one here in Charlestown. We had this year large delegations that came from overseas to attend here. The United States delegation, they opted to send some of them to Nevis and some remained in St. Kitts. But the Taiwanese also, for the first time, had an honor guard that came. And everybody was talking about them. Apparently they did a fantastic job in the parade in St. Kitts. Well, they didn't want to leave Nevis out. And since they couldn't be in both places on the same day, they came the following day to Nevis. And they marched through the streets of Charleston on the 20th of September. And based on the video clips that I would have seen, it seems like they did a wonderful job. And particularly our students appear to have enjoyed it immensely. So I would want to thank again the government and people of Taiwan for the signal honor of showing us what they do and how they do it, in terms of having their honor guard right here through the streets of Charlestown. I think they ended at the Grell Hull Stevens netball complex, and so we're delighted for that. Just going through the developments since I was last here, I want to commend the Deputy Premier again for the opening of the new housing project at St. James, Cedarview Housing Development. I believe that it speaks for itself. I don't need to say too much on that. For those of you who want to see the quality of work that is being done by the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation, I invite you to take a drive there. For those who want to see what we have done with the funds that we're able to secure from Social Security and what we can expect from additional funds being secured from Social Security, I think you ought to take a drive there. And in fact, take a drive around Nevis and look at the housing and the quality of housing that you're seeing around Nevis. I can tell it's the envy of many, because we are building quality housing the best possible for our people, and I think our people are satisfied. And so I was very proud to be there and be a part of that. I think it was an excellent occasion. I'm told that I ought to mention that Nevis has just been included. I was a little ambivalent about whether I should mention this. They say that we are on USA Today's best places to retire. I really want people to work hard, so I don't know if a retirement community is what we want to promote. But USA Today did a whole analysis, and they say Nevis is a wonderful place to retire. If it's a wonderful place to retire, it really means they're saying it's a wonderful place to live. Because they look at all the indicators, and USA Today is naming Little Nevis as one of the top places in the world to retire. So for those of you who are working now, you should try and retire here. That would be helpful. I traveled, ladies and gentlemen, to Jamaica to the funeral service of His Excellency Cedric Harper. Cedric Harper is a household name. He's a man who taught here in Nevis for many years. In fact, I believe he was the first principal at the then Gingerland High School, and he has touched the lives of many. Mr. Harper had moved to Jamaica, where he got married and lived in Jamaica. He was many things. He was a teacher, he was an educator, he was a principal at the school here. He was also someone who loved to sing and was a music aficionado. He also became a lawyer, and at one point was Attorney General of St. Kitts and Nevis, and he later became a diplomat. And for those of you who would have attended UWI in Jamaica, he was for many, many years the warden at Irving Hall, and an institution there where he touched many, many lives of students, Jamaican and others. And we had a wonderful service of celebration for his life at the Mona Chapel in Jamaica. The Honorable Prime Minister was also in attendance, and I think it was a fitting send-off for someone who had really served his country well. Thereafter, I journeyed to New York for the United Nations General Assembly, the 73rd edition of the General Assembly, and I think that we had a lot, we accomplished a lot there. St. Kitts and Nevis was able to sign diplomatic relations with San Marino, the Tongolese Republic, the Kingdom of Bahrain, and we also were able to sign a visa waiver arrangements with the Gambia. We also signed diplomatic relations with Sao Tome and Principe. And I know the Nevisian public, they will ask, what are these countries and what do they have to do with us? Truth is that my mandate as Foreign Minister has always been to expand the diplomatic footprint of St. Kitts and Nevis. And we were surprised that there were so many countries with which we had not established formal diplomatic relations. I'm very proud of the record, because as Foreign Minister, in my tenure as Foreign Minister, we have now added 29 new diplomatic allies. And our policy is simply that we are friends of all and foes of none. And so we continue to promote a diplomacy and a foreign relations policy based on friendship to all. 29 new nations, we will be adding others, but I think that is quite remarkable. And with the addition of the visa waiver with the Gambia, we have now taken that number to 15 additional countries to which you and I can go simply by producing our passport without the need for a visa. And that is demonstrative of the confidence of those countries in us. It is also saying to us that we are expanding our range. And so Kittitians and Nevisians, holders of our passport, can now travel globally to more places. I think we're now up to about 153 countries and territories that we can visit without a visa. And that, I think, is instructive. With the addition of the Gambia, we now have the most visa-free travel destinations in the Caribbean. Bahamas and Barbados used to be ahead of us, but I think we've now overtaken them. And we have more to come as we continue this march that we're on to make it easier for our people to engage. The Gambia, of course, is a nation in Africa, and we have been systematically trying to engage in a more substantive way with Africa as well. So we've added Sierra Leone, we've added Kenya, with Senegal, Ghana, Morocco. We have good relations with all of these countries as part and parcel of our outreach to the African continent. And of course, as we like to say, as I like to say, we are part of the African diaspora. the so-called sixth region of Africa, where they look to the diaspora as their sixth region. And as we see so many flocking into Africa, other countries going into Africa for investment, I think we in the Caribbean should not be left out. And Little St. Kitts and Nevis has been leading the way in that regard. Quick update on the hospital project. I have a lengthy report here, which I shan't get into, but it looks as if, based on that report from the project manager, that the hospital project is proceeding apace. The Oali Pier, there's been a slight hiatus. I'm advised by the Deputy Premier that the contractors, they have returned to St. Martin and ought to be back soon to complete that pier, but I think that many of you who have passed there, you already have a sense of what it's going to look like. We have, what, another similar length, Deputy Premier, to be added? Another 120 feet to be added, and then we should have that facility ready. The Brown Hill Road continues apace, and I believe that on Thursday we go into the Nevis Island Assembly, and the ministers will certainly be able to give a full report on their various ministries, on the statements by ministers. But Brown Hill Road continues apace. I'm again calling for the patience of the people of Brown Hill and letting them know that we are trying our best to produce a good quality product for them. In fact, if they were to go what we call up the hill, for those of you who are here and you know Brown Hill, up the hill, the roads there are paved and ready, and so they get a sense of the quality of what is being done. The water project continues apace as well, and we have really efforts being made island-wide. All across the length and breadth of Nevis, efforts are being made for the water project. The Treasury building, we can't miss it because it towers above the rest of Charlestown. Well, that is proceeding apace as well. The last word we got was that we were ordering the elevators and the like to put in there, and so that project is also going nicely. I reported on Government House, Charlestown Primary School. We're doing some additions there. That too is going well, as indeed is the Ivor Walters Primary School. And let me take a moment to apologize to the staff, the students, and the parents, because some have complained about the inconvenience of school having started and there's construction activity. We will try to do better and to try and manage these things in a better way, but the summer period tends to be short. It seems like a long vacation, but it's really not that long, and there's a lot happening, particularly Culturama, which tends to absorb a lot of resources and manpower. And so we want to apologize for the inconvenience, but to say that whilst we try to do better in terms of timing, the thinking behind it is really to alleviate the very real problems of crowding and overcrowding that we've experienced at some of these venues. And so we ask the teachers, principal, staff, parents, students to bear with us as we continue to try and do better. CCTV room, that's the building right there by the police station in Charlestown. That is continuing apace, and I'm told that that will soon be ready for occupation. World Teachers Day will be celebrated on October 5th, and I'm told that they have an entire week of activities for our teachers, celebrating a month, of activities throughout the month of October. And so we're asking one and all to go out and support our teachers. They are, of course, as I like to say, in the very heart of our development. If they don't get it right, then nothing else matters. They are the very heart of our development, and we should celebrate them at every step of the way. I also advise that this month our seniors are celebrating a month of activities as well. The Honorable Eric Evelyn has indicated that on Friday they're going to have a march through Charlestown, and so we encourage one and all to go out and support our seniors. They say that the measure of any country is how it treats its seniors. And I believe that starting with Madam Junior Minister Hazel Brandy Williams, when she was there, and continuing now with Minister Eric Evelyn, we have had an excellent program for our seniors in Nevis. A program I think that is the envy of the region in terms of what we do. And I think that we have continued, each administration, to build on the foundation that was there before. So we have seniors playing pan, seniors getting computer classes, seniors getting regular outings, seniors, I think I have a trivia, we had a senior pageant some time ago, senior queen show, swimsuit, all kind of things the seniors are doing. And we're very grateful that the quality of life that the government has partnered with is ensuring that our seniors continue to be appreciated. We have also, of course, introduced things like the electricity and water relief for of our seniors to make life for them a bit easier. I have said that the NIA will meet on Thursday, the Nevis Island Assembly, that is, will meet on Thursday. Ladies and gentlemen, this is for me significant because we did commit when we campaigned that the House ought to convene at least once every 2 months as necessary, but at least once every 2 months, more if necessary, and we have tried to keep that pledge. Just the same way we have promised that every month we will come and meet with the press, and we'll try to keep that pledge. I hope when the press gets up, they don't harass me too much that we didn't have a press conference in September. If you realize, I am here very early in October, but that was largely due to travel and the long commitment at the UN, and so I apologize to you for that, and hope that you will forgive me. I've come as early in October as circumstances permitted. We expect to have at the Nevis Island Assembly some statements by ministers. We also expect to have the first reading of 2 bits of legislation, the Nevis Physical Planning Amendment Ordinance and the Nevis Investment Promotion Agency Amendment Ordinance. So that is where we are. In the context of good governance, I wanted to indicate to members of the press, because I've come in the past to say that whilst constitutionally we have no leader of the opposition, we have nevertheless, as a government, decided that we will make the necessary resources available for an office for the opposition. And I'm delighted today to announce that we have made all of the necessary arrangements and that Mr. Perry now has a fully functional office, that the NIA is providing, I believe it's $5,800 per month to support that office. We have staff, a member of staff that has been hired to be his support staff at that office. We provided computer equipment, we provided printer, scanner, and the works. I would hope that even our harshest critics would admit that this is a good step forward in terms of the governance structure of the island of Nevis. And I'm very proud that we have been able as an administration to deliver on that commitment, and I hope that Mr. Perry, if he's listening, is comfortable in this office that has been provided to him and the support that has been given to the opposition. And this is important because from time to time people come into the country, they want to visit the opposition, they want to have a conversation, and there has never before in our history been a space for the opposition to function. Never before. So I am hopeful that our people would appreciate that this is a right step in the right direction to take us where we need to go. And I'm very grateful. I want to commend Mr. Dorr, our permanent secretary, because he worked hard to bring this. And it would have happened before. Let me just say, because I know the critics may say why it took so long. It would have happened before, but the initial spaces that we identified, those spaces were not deemed by the honorable gentleman to be acceptable. And so we had various arrangements made which he did not like, and so we think that this arrangement now is to his liking. I believe he chose the space himself, So if he doesn't like it, he can't blame us because he's the one who chose it. Travel allowance, you would recall that we had announced that we'll be assisting our students who are attending school at the CFBC in St. Kitts and at AVIC in St. Kitts. We had indicated that many parents had come and complained about the cost, and we made it clear that we would only support students doing subjects that were not available in Nevis. Because for those who chose to go to St. Kitts when they could do the subjects in Nevis, well, we could not provide assistance for those. So far, I'm told by the Ministry of Education that some 37 students are currently benefiting from the 10 ferry passes per month, and that there are some others that are being processed. And so I'm very pleased again that we have been able to bring relief to thus far some 37 students. We have had much talk about the Federal Housing Assistance Program, and we charge, of course, Minister Evelyn to get that program going in Nevis to gather the data. I am told that through the collection process we had 819 households. 819 households in Nevis have brought forward their data. Now, it doesn't mean that 819 households would benefit, because we're now going to the verification stage, bearing in mind that some people may choose to understate the household income. So we'll now go through that verification process And once that is done, that program will be rolled out in earnest. Just so you have a sense, the numbers in St. Kitts, I'm told, are 4,087 households, 819 households in Nevis. Property tax, I wanted to say a quick word on that because we are now going through a process, and I'm again appealing to the public for their support and their cooperation. Property tax, what we realize is that there continue to be several homes and businesses, several buildings that are not on our tax rolls. For whatever reason, those people have not been paying any tax because their buildings are not registered. So far, we've identified some 825 homes that are not on the tax rolls. And so the Inland Revenue Department has a team that is going out, and we will find you wherever you are. So we are hopeful that you don't make us have to come and find you. You go into the Inland Revenue and you say, listen, my home was just constructed, or it was constructed 5 years ago. I do not believe that it's on the tax roll. Could you sort us out? And let us really start to be responsible in terms of what we do. But the teams are out, and so far they've been doing an excellent job. They've identified about 825 homes thus far, and we're hopeful that you'll make our work a little easier by coming in and being responsible citizens. I want to say a word about litter and garbage, because I believe that those who are social media aficionados like myself would have realized that the Nevis Solid Waste Management Corporation, Mr. Andrew Hendrickson, and the Ministry of Health, Madam Minister Hazel Brandy Williams, the Permanent Secretary of Health is here, as Nicole Slack-Liberd, that they've all been working in tandem to try and keep Nevis clean. And why do we want to keep Nevis clean? Many say, oh, because of tourists. I'm not interested in that. We're trying to keep Nevis clean for ourselves. If tourists come and they experience a clean island, wonderful. But we must first take pride in our surroundings for ourselves, because we live here all year round. This is our island. And just like when somebody comes to your house, you don't want your house to be dirty because it reflects badly on you. Just so, when people come to our island, we don't want the island to be littered with garbage because it reflects badly on us. We are taking this litter issue seriously, I believe, through a collaboration with ministers, the relevant ministry, environmental health, and the Solid Waste Corporation. We were able recently to get some landowners to clean up their property where it appeared they had become a dumping ground for garbage from their business, and they were able to clear it up. We continue with the scrap metal program, and this company Enclave continues to go island-wide now and collect all refrigerators, old cars, scrap metal which you're crushing and sending off island. The process behind that is multifold: to keep the island clean, prevent breeding grounds for rodents and mosquitoes, vectors of that like, which can cause problems. Also, limit the areas where those bent on criminality can hide contraband. And, of course, to generate some additional space at the landfill, where a lot of these cars and trucks were taking up space. So we're moving all the white goods off island. We're moving all the cars and trucks that are wrecks. And I think that process is really going well. As a matter of fact, it's going so well that our neighbors in St. Kitts have already jumped on it. And I'm told that the company is to do work over there soon. And we're already seeing, I got calls as far away as Bermuda, where people are asking how they could do some of what we're doing. You know, a lot of us look at Nevis and say we're small, and we are. But a lot of things we're doing here, we're leading in this region. And I want Nevisians to appreciate that. A lot of things that we're doing, I mentioned the elderly earlier and the care for our seniors. I'm mentioning this scrap metal program right now. A lot of what we're doing, we're leading in this region. And I think that we need to appreciate that and to understand that in so many respects, what we do here on this island, we take a leadership role in this Caribbean. Let me just mention that Postal Services Week, under the leadership of the Honorable Spencer Brand, I see marching in a couple of days ago, where that is on, well and truly on. And we're asking, of course, for everyone to go out and support our postal workers. Just if I can segue back to the issue of garbage and littering, that the administration intends to take this quite seriously. We intend to do all that is necessary under the law. We've asked the legal department to provide the necessary advice to us to see how we can hold people accountable, legally accountable, for keeping their surroundings clean and to use the current provisions of the law, including the necessary citations to individuals to clean up their surroundings so that all of us can have a healthier, cleaner, and a better island. We intend to appoint later wardens if necessary and to start the process of ticketing people if necessary to ensure that we do what we need to do. But most of all, I'm calling on our public to really be responsible. You hear me say that a lot, of all of us being responsible citizens. They need to be responsible in order to take us to the next level. I'm coming close to the end. Let me just say very quickly that SIDU, which is a small enterprise development unit, they are currently hosting a QuickBook accounting workshop from October 1st to 12th. So 2-week QuickBook accounting workshop from 5 to 7 p.m. daily. And why is that? It's because, again, we are asking, our SIDU is there to support the small business community. They've already trained some 60 small business persons thus far, and clearly accounting and being able to keep proper records is a critical part of your business. If you can't keep proper records, you don't know whether you're coming or going. You don't know if you're making a profit or loss. So I want to welcome this initiative from SIDU, to thank again P.S. Doe and his team. I think they've been doing a fine job, and to continue to encourage our small business owners to take advantage of these opportunities. The government continues to push small businesses, and we want you to take advantage. And so QuickBooks counting system, that workshop is happening October 1st to 12th. Let me talk for a moment about Four Seasons Resort. Four Seasons Resort, as we know, is undergoing a massive transformation. And that transformation, I have just been sent by them an update. And let me just read. We are pleased to share a number of exciting updates from Four Seasons Resort Nevis. The current enhancement project is moving along as planned, with a number of the redesigned guest rooms already available for guest stays. The feedback from guests and industry partners has been extremely positive, with everyone raving about the resort's fresh take on Nevis's timeless Caribbean experience. In addition to that, everyone is looking forward to the unveiling of the new Great House lobby, as well as the new crowned Monkey Rum Bar and Esquilina restaurant. On track to open by December 10th, Crowned Monkey Rum Bar will be the perfect place for pre-dinner cocktail or nightcap, while Esquilina will feature a bustling breakfast buffet by day and a coastal Mediterranean-inspired menu in the evening. For Thanksgiving this year, guests will be able to experience a redesigned Hamilton Room, formerly the Coral Grill, which will offer delectable Thanksgiving buffet dinner, as well as exquisite cuts of meat and seafood, along with fresh organic produce for a classic steakhouse with a Caribbean twist all week long. With all that in mind, this year's festive season is shaping up to be one of the best the resort has ever seen, with the return of a number of fan favorites, including the Mango Reggae Brunch and Rose and Beer on the Pier, as well as a and Beer on the Pier, as well as a number of new programs from golf to tennis to kids for all seasons, which will continue into a strong first quarter 2019 and beyond. It is clear that this renovation underscores the resort's commitment to a continued investment in the island of Nevis and its people. And with a partnership that is now more than 27 years in the making, this project supports our common goal of being a destination of preference for global travelers. So that is an update straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. I read, not in my words, but in theirs, what they would have sent me. On Friday, this coming Friday, we have a significant development, and I want to thank Minister Spencer Brand, who's here for his leadership. Young minister, just came in, but he is operating like a veteran minister, because under his leadership, we are having the handover of the Bede water wells back to the people of Nevis on Friday, the 5th of October. Now, many of you may ask, so what is the relevance of this? We would have recognized that the government, some many years ago, entered into an arrangement with Bede, where Bede constructed or dug these wells that supply most of the water that we consume in the island of Nevis. Bede would have dug these wells, and we would have had an agreement to buy the water from Bede over all these years. The years have gone by, the process has come to an end, and on the 5th, the people of Nevis take back their wells and their water. And so come Friday, we will no longer have an arrangement where we have to buy water from Bede. We will in fact have our own water restored to us, because at the end of the day it was always our water, but we had a contract to buy it from them because they were the ones who dug the wells. Well, that arrangement is now done, and come Friday, Minister Brand, I hope, will put his hands up. We're going to get keys for the wells. whatever we're going to get for the wells, there'll be a handover of the wells. And so we invite one and all. It will be at the Madden's Estate Pump Station site at 10 a.m. A very, very significant day for the people of Nevis and for the sustainability and the independence of the island as we seek to do more together and to do more in a positive way. In the Ministry of Health, being ably led by Madam Minister Hazel Brandy Williams, I want to report that we've had the return of a physician, nurse, and school meals chef from a one-month training course in Taiwan on chronic kidney disease. I think you would remember that we have a 3-year arrangement with Taiwan where they are helping us to assist with this killer, which is kidney disease, as one of the many NCDs which are impacting our people. As a matter of fact, at the United Nations this year, our Prime Minister, Dr. Harris, hosted an NCD forum, the very first time that the UN is having such a high-level forum on NCDs. And he's a spokesperson for health for CARICOM. And so he was able to lead that, and I think it was an auspicious day for us as a small nation. But the statistics are alarming. 8 of 10 deaths, we're told, in the region are due to NCDs. Our rate for diabetes is twice the global rate. So we are having a crisis in our country. And NCDs and the cost of treating NCDs is gobbling up most of the health budgets of most of these countries. The old people always say an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And what we know about NCDs is that most of the NCDs can be avoided with lifestyle changes. Proper diet, moderate exercise, less drinking of alcohol, doing the things that the Health Promotion Unit and our departments and ministries of health, our health centers, continue to encourage us to do. So I want again to use this platform to encourage our people to eat moderately and sensibly, exercise moderately, and to try and lead healthier lifestyles. If we can spend $1 in prevention, it is worth $100 later in cure. And many of our people develop diabetes, develop hypertension. It leads them to chronic kidney disease. It leads to amputations. It leads to morbidity. And as we've learned, 8 out of 10 deaths are attributable to NCDs. So this is something that really we have the power in our hands to make a difference. And we want to thank Taiwan for their continued engagement to address this crisis of NCDs that we're facing, not only in Nevis and St. Kitts, but in the wider region. 3 persons who were just trained were Dr. Ravi Shankar, Nurse Visha Stapleton, and Mr. Michael Henville, who, as you know, heads our Chef Academy. These people were 3 persons in addition to 3 that were trained last year in 2017. And I believe another group is supposed to go. This is the last group. Another group is supposed to go. So the idea is that we're transferring skills by going there for a 1-month period, and then they come back and others go. But the idea is that when they come back, they will, of course, assist each other. The Gingerland Health Center has been relocated as of the 3rd of September. Clients and staff will now be in a more comfortable location to receive and provide public health services. A radiographer, Mr. Rolman Yedra of Cuba, will commence employment on 1st October with us. And we welcome Dr. Erlene Pemberton, one of our own, who will commence employment on 1st October, increasing the physician complement at the Alexandra Hospital. That is the update that we have in the context of health. I should just add that whilst in New York, I was contacted by Mr. James Gaskell, whom all of us know has been very involved in the Healthier Meals for Our Children program for many years now, and was instrumental in providing equipment and the impetus for the kitchen, I believe, at the Charleston Primary School. Well, he clearly, that's his passion, and he got in touch and he asked me to visit the botanical gardens in New York, where they have started something called the Edible Academy. And so I went, perhaps on a bad day because it was particularly cold that day, but I went, and I hope to be able to say more about it when I speak to NTV. But the Edible Academy really is a wonderful concept, where what they've done is they bring school children, they teach them about crops and plants. They're able to plant and come back each week to tend their little plot. And from the food that is produced in that plot, they learn how to cook it. They take it home for their families, as the case may be. And it's really an exciting idea to encourage children to get involved at that very young age in seeing how food grows, eating the food that they grow. And I've always advocated the backyard garden and things of that nature. Mr. Gaskell, as we know, has donated some land for that very purpose. And we hope to invite the people from the Edible Academy down. And so I'm putting the Minister of Education on notice, and the Minister of Agriculture as well on notice, that we hope that they can come to help us develop the necessary programs. So I want to go on record to thank Mr. Gaskell for his continuing interest and for pointing me in that particular direction, because I had not myself heard of the Edible Academy. And it demonstrates that, again, all of us doing the little we can to help, because I think each of us helping is a strand that really makes the rope that is our development stronger. And so we continue to certainly look forward to that assistance. I will end by a simple report on the high school debate competition. I gather we had a fierce contest between the high schools in Gingerland and Charlestown and the sixth form. And surprise, surprise, the CSS beat sixth form and emerged a winner. So I am very impressed. I want to just commend the, I think, young Brantley Liebert, my little friend. She was the best speaker, I'm told, for the debate between CSS and GSS. And then in the debate between the sixth form and CSS, which CSS won, I want to emphasize that CSS won, going up against those who are senior to them. I want to, of course, congratulate Ms. Dahlia Slack. I think she has a relative somewhere in the room for being the best speaker in that particular debate. And then they debated some very important topics. I think the debate number one, the topic was the over-reliance on fossil fuels represents the greatest threat to the sustainable development of the Caribbean. And for the final debate, the championship debate, the sustainable economic growth of Nevis will be best attained via its federal union with St. Kitts and through a separate path for independence. I regrettably wasn't here, but I'm sure that the debates went well, and I want to thank all of those who attended. I particularly want to thank Mr. Anselm Keynes and the entire team for this innovative approach in getting our youths to debate these big issues that impact our country and impact our world. Ladies and gentlemen, I will leave it there. I've been going on for a little while, and I've been warned about the length of these press conferences, so I will leave it there and invite any comments or questions from members of the press. Thank you.
Mr. Premier.
Good morning, good morning.
Good morning, Minister Brand, Minister Evelyn, Minister Jeffers, the lovely Minister Hazel Brandy, Williams, other government officials and members of the media. Let me start by commending Minister Evelyn for that Culturama press conference he had the other day, I think was last month. That was well put together. I did ask some questions and he responded excellently. And that is why I pledged to work with him after the next election. We are going to work together. This is one Nevis, you know. We'll work together. Two ministers working together as one to bring benefits to the good people of Nevis.
You said 2 ministers?
2 ministers working together in unity, oneness, to bring benefits to all the people, Mr. Premier. Well, Mr. Premier, I would like to, I'm having some difficulty. I'm trying to enhance my business attire, and I'm having some difficulty searching here and there all around. I know what I want, but I would like your support. If you could be my fashion advisor, I would appreciate that. This is one Nevis, everybody love each other now. This is good.
To help.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I had a very busy week last month. Just yesterday I scribbled these questions on paper.
Yes.
We have, Mr. Premier, we have integrity in public life here again, This is integrity in public life. I have some questions here regarding that. Mr. Premier, what is the status of the Integrity Commission? What is the status now? And after you would have received, well, not you, but copied to the Deputy Governor General, that letter highlighting some by the Honorable Joseph Parry. What is the status of that? Have you responded? Have the office of the Deputy Governor General responded to that? Have the instruments of appointment been issued as yet to the commissioners? And can you confirm, you received the letter and everything with some recommendations and everything of some changes from the leader of the opposition. Will you take those recommendations on board, or will you leave everything as it is? Can you confirm that clearly today, so we could put this to rest, this integrity in public life, because this is not going away now, Mr. Premier. This is coming month after month. I'll leave it there for now. I'll give members of the media a chance, and I'll probably come back around again.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hanley. On fashion tips, I think Minister Evelyn can assist you. So, since you're pledged to work with him, I think he can continue to work with you in that regard. The IPL, I recognize that you come and you do ask month after month. You ask about the status. As far as I'm aware, the instruments of appointment have been issued to the members. And just to remind the public that the members are Mr. Sidney Newton, Mr. Alfred Tyrrell, and the chair is Mr. Ricardo Keynes. So the instruments of appointment, I'm advised, have been issued. The letter you spoke of from Mr. Parry, the lone member of the opposition in the parliament, that letter was not written to me, it was copied to me. My understanding is that it has been responded to, and it would have had to have been responded to by the Deputy Governor General, because that is, the letter was addressed to the Deputy Governor General. I'm not aware that there was any letter with any recommendations. You spoke of a letter with recommendations. What I did see was that letter, that one letter, single letter, where Mr. Parry raised concerns about the chair of the commission and about Mr. Newton making some allegations, which I addressed, I believe, on the last occasion I was here, to indicate that in my respectful view, those allegations were baseless. So I do not know what the content was. I have not seen a response to Mr. Parry, but it would be for the Deputy Governor General to respond. The status of the commission, it's a timely question, because we have asked our legal department, a legal advisor who's here, to put together some sessions with the commissioners, with senior civil servants, with us, the members of the cabinet, to really educate us as to what the requirements are. And I'm told that those sessions are going to occur this month. I've seen some dates already for those sessions to occur. So the process is moving forward, and we are putting the necessary infrastructure in place to ensure that integrity in public life is given life, that it comes into being after, as you know, being dormant for many years. So we are moving ahead. Part of it, of course, is that our public servants, because many people think that integrity in public life only applies to politicians. So we need the permanent secretaries and the heads of departments, etc., to also understand that they are reached by the legislation. And I believe through the process of consultation and education that we will also take from them suggestions for making it better. Because I think that those who handle the day-to-day affairs of the public might have their own suggestions and recommendations. So I am very open, and I think the Cabinet is very open to taking on board suggestions as how we could tighten and make it better. Maybe some argue it's too wide, something we'll need to look at. Do we have to have the net cast as wide as it is? Can we maybe have the net a little tighter? I don't know. But the legislation has been passed, the legislation has been activated, and we're now going through the process of educating each other And I thank the legal advisor and her team for leading that effort. So by the next time you come and you ask the question, I should be able to give you some update as to where we are in terms of that process of educating each other through the guidance of the legal department on the integrity in public life.
Good morning. Monique Washington, St. Kitts Nevis Observer newspaper. Mr. Premier, during the throne speech, you would have mentioned about banning styrofoam. Now, Dominica would say that they're going to ban it in January of next year. Grenada's parliament would have already tabled the ban styrofoam bill, and Antigua has launched the styrofoam ban initiative. When will the NIA follow the other islands' lead and put in place some sort of policy to ban styrofoam? Earlier you would have mentioned that the measure of a country is how you treat your seniors. With the poverty alleviation program, what considerations were given to seniors whose income do not exceed the maximum? And you spoke about BEAD, the NIA taking back over BEAD, the BEAD wells. Because the NIA will not be paying BEAD for water anymore, will we now see a reduction in our water bills? And how much will the NIA be saving by now owning the wells? And how long did BEAD own the wells? And the last question, dealing with politics. Now we are seeing now a lot of veteran NRP candidates stepping down, leaving the party, and we're seeing new candidates arising. In St. John's, we are now seeing the young and fresh Sazam Hall rising up and challenging the St. John's seat. My question to you is, how confident are you going into the next NIA election or even the next federal election that you will retain your seat against the young and fresh Mr. Hall? Thank you.
I start where you left off. I am not aware that Mr. Hull is a candidate for anyone, because I've seen no announcement from the NRP, and I think that members of the press, like everyone else, should await some formal word before we start to speculate. What I will say is that you have indicated that certain veterans have left the arena, and you must ask yourself why they have left the arena. They have left the arena for a purpose. So as the old Calypsonian said, whoever wants to come, let it come, if they want to come. And we will deal with that in a different context. We're in governance mode now. When the time for politics comes, I think that we will deal with whosoever may come. But the names that I'm hearing, as I said, there's a lot of chatter. I really prefer not to respond to the chatter, but to wait until I have some formal statement from the NRP as to who their candidates are likely to be, and then we know who it is that the opponents are likely to be in terms of the political contest. Speaking as the leader of this party, the Concerned Citizens Movement, and as currently the Premier of Nevis, of a CCM and leader of a CCM-led NIA, I can tell you that we will be judged on our performance and our record, and that ultimately is what we bring. We have campaigned quite successfully on our record in the last term, and we hope to be able to campaign on our record against whoever may come. And so that is as much as I can say in relation to that question. Maybe in another month or two, if the NRP does decide who their candidates are going to be, then we can have perhaps a more robust discussion as to who they are and what we can look forward to. But currently, as I said, I've had speculation. I have not seen any statement from the NRP in that regard. Those who are retiring, I want to wish them well, and perhaps they have better luck in the next endeavor than they did in the political arena. Styrofoam ban, you say, when are we going to follow the lead of the other islands? Perhaps you ought to have said that it was Nevis who said so first. I think that that's important sometimes, because after we declared it in the throne speech, I see Tutmun Sam and Bagai jump on and say they're going to do it. So you are correct in one part of the question in that you asked, when are we going to do it? Truth be told, that of course the NIA, through our throne speech, would have indicated that this would be our preference, this is our ambition to have this happen. We, however, have looked at it and have had to retreat somewhat, because clearly we have to have the entire country on board. Unlike Grenada or Antigua or Dominica or any of those, where the central government is the only government and therefore making a decision for the entire country, the NIA certainly cannot make a decision for St. Kitts. So the federal government also has to be on board in relation to the ban on styrofoam and the like. And that has not yet happened. They have not yet declared that. Why does that matter? It matters because if we were to issue a ban on Nevis, we can't stop people from going to St. Kitts and bringing plastic bags over on the boat. It will be very difficult because once the plastic bags are in the country, they're already in the country. So we have a concern that we declare ban on Nevis. If it's not also banned in St. Kitts, then there's a very easy way to get around the Nevis ban. And that is our concern. What I can say to you, however, is that the hoteliers and the restaurateurs have come together as a group, and they have indicated that they want to voluntarily phase out the use of plastic, single-use plastics and styrofoam in their restaurants and in their hotels. And since they are the largest sort of single consumer, if you will, or users of those environmentally challenging products, we think that that's a very good start. I think Oali has already started. Four Seasons is following suit. Nisbet is following suit. And I believe the last I heard that they were talking to Rams about bringing in environmentally friendly packaging so that they could use for their meals and for their cups and straws and the like. The supermarkets are the next big offender because every time you go, of course, they give you plastic bags which then find their way into the environment. So we will be talking to them as well. So at this point, the NIA has not proposed legislation or proposed a ban as yet because we need our colleagues in St. Kitts also to be on board. And we expect that that is going to happen and then the entire country can move forward. But in the interim, we have been talking to the big interest groups such as the hoteliers and restaurants and the supermarkets about a voluntary ban on their part. If they don't buy it and they don't make it available to the public, then we think that's a giant step forward. So all is not lost, and we hope to get to where we need to be in short order. It was a commitment that we made and a commitment that we intend to keep. It's just that we've been delayed in implementing it.
Other question.
Sure. Which was?
Water.
Oh, yes. Forgive me. I made a note of it. Water, the Bede water wells, as I understand, it was a 10-year arrangement. So they owned those wells for the past 10 years and sold the water from those wells to the NIA, to our water department, which then sold that water to the general public. That was my understanding. So those 10 years have now come to an end. And as of Friday, those wells will be handed over. Is there going to be a cost savings to us? Certainly, we still have cost of producing the water. The wells now will be under our control, our management. We will have to take care of the wells. We'll have to deal with all the costs that are associated with that. The pumping stations, getting the water from the wells and into the system, all of those will now be assumed by us. So I'm not sure that we'll necessarily have a large or significant cost savings. But that's a matter that I will discuss with the minister and with his team for us to properly determine what it means in terms of savings to us as a government and then any potential savings to the consumer. Because I think that's what you're really getting at, is there potential for that. I don't yet have the numbers. We'll have to look very carefully to see what savings can be or might be realized once the wells are handed over. From our perspective as Nivisions, the significance of Friday is that Nivisions will now once again own their own water. And that to me is the significance of it. So cost savings perhaps to my mind was secondary. We'll look at that. But what to me the highlight was that we will, as of Friday, once again have control over the water resource on the island. Because hitherto we control the distribution, but not the supply. So now we'll control every aspect of it, the distribution and the supply of water. In terms of money, you asked how much money we were spending with Bede? About 50,000 US a month. About 50,000 US a month, I'm being told, that we were paying them to supply us with the water. Then we had to do everything else and distribute the water so it gets to your homes. So at least we will no longer be paying that out. But of course, we'll have responsibility, as I said, for all the maintenance and the like on those wells. So, not sure you asked me a question on that. Oh yes, well, yeah, I didn't quite understand your question, forgive me, because the Poverty Alleviation Program, the Household Income Allowance Program, is designed for people who are getting an income of less than $3,000 a month. I think that was the understanding. So if the household income is less than $3,000 a month, it has nothing to do with seniors or an age group. Of course, anyone can apply. The idea is that it's for households making less than $3,000 a month. So, and I want to emphasize households, not individuals. That's important, because if two seniors, for example, husband and wife, are together, but they have a combined income of over $3,000, they will not be eligible. So it is the household income that you must look at, not the individual income. And it is not age-bound, so anybody who falls within that category can apply. Any household that falls within that category can apply.
Mr. Premier?
Yes.
Good morning to you and to all other individuals present here and those listening via various media platforms. Mr. Premier, my first question regarding the health centers here on Nevis, in particular the Charlestown Health Center. Does the NIA have any plans to renovate or expand that facility? Secondly, it is our understanding that the school bus is only allowed to pick up high school students before and after school. The question is, shouldn't the school bus be made available to both high schoolers and those students who are attending primary school? And how does the administration plan to address this issue? Another question is with regards to the office of the Honorable Joseph Parry. Is that the same office located in the St. Thomas's area? And you mentioned that on USA Today, they said that Nevis is a good place to retire, which begs good for us. But some 4 months ago, there was a release from Trip Savvy, that is a travel site, a destination travel site, and it had a release regarding a guide to the safest and most dangerous Caribbean islands to visit, and the list was composed of 12 islands, and Nevis was number 11 on that list. And they said, and I quote, Bastia has the highest murder rate of any capital in the world, and the overall homicide rate, and is the 8th highest across the globe. I'm not sure if you are aware of.
I'm not sure of the question. You said Nevis was the highest, and then you said Bastia. So what are you saying?
St. Kitts and Nevis.
Okay, thank you.
St. Kitts and Nevis.
Good.
So the release is saying that, you know, we have the highest murder rate of any capital in the world and overall homicide rate, 8 across the globe. This paints a negative picture for St. Kitts and Nevis, and it would impact our tourism industry, the tourism sector here on the island. What would you say to tourists who are looking for a vacation site, you know, wanting to visit a Caribbean island? What would you say to those individuals? As you said, USA Today painted a good picture saying that this would be a good place to retire. But 4 months ago, Trip Savvy said that one of the most dangerous places, Caribbean islands to visit. So what would you say to individuals looking for a site to vacation? So thank you.
Okay. What can I say? I mean, different people do their own evaluation, and you and I well know that based sometimes on the agenda, based sometimes on what they choose to focus on, they come up with their results. You live here. Maybe I should have asked you the question, because I don't know that any of us here feel that somehow we are living in some murder capital. We have problems, to be sure, and I'm not going to stand here and try to pretend that we don't. We can't be ostriches and put our heads in the sand. We do have a problem, particularly with homicides. We've had a problem for a long time with homicides, and it is something that we have continued to talk about. We have continued to invest in our security forces, invest in our social services, try our best to encourage our people to move away from this life of crime and this life of violence, which really at the end of the day has little, if any, value or reward. I look at some of the youngsters and I talk to many of them all the time, and I say, well, why are you engaged in this? They themselves can't tell you why they engage in it. So a lot of it is foolishness about who disrespect who in high school and this kind of nonsense. And I think that all of us need to do our part. Government, certainly. Security forces, certainly. The churches, the schools, and most importantly, the families. Because these children are coming out of homes, and the question has to be asked, what is happening in those homes that is causing these children to behave in such a way? So I am not going to resile from the fact that we have a high homicide rate, and I think a homicide rate that all of us should be ashamed of, something that is a cancer and a stigma on the part of our country. But at the end of the day, I think that we live here and we recognize that we still have a beautiful country which is not defined by our homicide rate. And so it is for readers to determine whether something in Trip Savvy, you say, I've never heard of them, but Trip Savvy, if they are to be the standard bearer, so to speak, in terms of defining our country, or something in USA Today would be the standard bearer in defining our country. People, I find, will gravitate to the story that most suits their own particular worldview. And so I will not seek to say that the story in Trip Savvy is a bad story. It clearly portrays us in a negative light. But I think that what I've just read here to you from Four Seasons Resort itself is telling you how bullish they are, how buoyant they're looking forward. So they're clearly not as concerned about what Trip Savvy is saying, because they're out there investing considerable sums of money. We're told somewhere in the region of $40 million in Nevis. So clearly they have a confidence in Nevis. In St. Kitts, you have the Park Hyatt that has just opened. You have other hotel projects that are open, catering to travelers. So clearly people, again, have confidence. They invest in. Last time I was here, I reported that Four Seasons Resort Estates was saying that they've had the highest sales ever in the history of villas and high-end housing at the Four Seasons. So we have to juxtapose all of these, if you will, conflicting views, because on the one hand you have a very negative profile and story. On the other hand, you have incredibly positive news. I prefer to focus on the positive, while admitting that we have a difficulty. I believe that that difficulty does not and will not define our country nor our island. You asked about Mr. Parry's office. I'm told that it is in the St. Thomas's area, because the two locations we had identified in Charlestown were not to his liking. And so that is where the office is in the, what's over there called? Nelson Spring area. Health centers on Nevis, we have, yes, the intention to renovate and to improve. I believe we have done some work in Gingerland, that's what I was just able to announce. But the truth is that we are constantly constrained by the financing. And the financial situation in Nevis, as we all know, we are always there or thereabouts, and trying to ensure that at the end of the year, we are not in a hole. So it is often difficult. We're going into the budgetary cycle now. In the next couple of days, we start, I believe, and we hope that we could bring some of these and some financing to bear to make some of these happen in terms of our health centers. So I would want to make that commitment to our healthcare workers who work in the health centers and to those in the communities who attend the health centers, that we will continue to do the best we can to improve the working environment and improve the environment for the clients. Let me also, while I'm talking about health centers, continue to encourage our people from the villages and from the various communities in Nevis to please use their health centers for dressings and other things that they need to do. We continue to get complaints from the hospital that so many people are coming from all across Nevis to go to the hospital for simple dressings and the like. It clogs up the main hospital when those are things that can be dealt with, whether it is in Combermere, whether it is in Brownhill, as the case may be. So we continue to encourage our people to get your blood pressure checks, your dressings, your ordinary day-to-day functions. You can have those done at the health centers rather than journeying to Charlestown to the main hospital and clogging up the hospital for those simple procedures. So I just put in that pitch since I'm on the microphone and talking about that. School buses only picking up high schoolers. Our minister isn't here, but I find that odd. Is that accurate? The Minister of PS Education? Only high schoolers are accommodated?
Yes, for the most part, but you have to be careful with that, because while we have the zones and the primary school children will go to the school in their zone, it is not very necessary.
Okay. 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 So that might be the explanation then, or that is the explanation. That because of the zoning system, the primary schoolers should really be going to school in close proximity to where they live. So they really should not require the school bus. The high schoolers, on the other hand, bearing in mind we only have the 2 high schools, there's a longer distance for students to travel to get to those high schools. So I should have thought of that, but I didn't. So I thank the PS for being here and to advise. Thank you.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Chairman Abel, WinFM. Just quickly, I have one question before I ask what I have on the paper. With regards to SYNCIT, you as the Minister with responsibility for foreign affairs, and in one section of the media, there's reports that St. Kitts and Nevis is the crime capital of the world, of the Caribbean, basically. And in another, you have statistics, data showing that various cities in the U.S. States have numbers ridiculously higher than St. Kitts and Nevis. How do you, as the Minister with responsibility for foreign affairs, go out and market St. Kitts and Nevis, bring investors, promote St. Kitts and Nevis on the world scene, that St. Kitts and Nevis is not the crime capital of the world?
But that's not my job, to put that bluntly. I think it's everybody's job to promote the country, but as Minister of Foreign Affairs, my job is to deal with other nations and with our bilateral and multilateral engagements. So it's not to go out and look investment or go out and explain that we don't have crime or whatever. That perhaps is for the people who engage with the tourism portfolios or those who engage with public relations. So my remit as Foreign Minister, you did ask me the question as Foreign Minister, is considerably more limited than what you're describing. You did say, however, that some sections of the media are saying one thing, other sections are saying the next. That is the nature of the world that we live in. And that's why I say some stories will appeal to some palates and other stories will appeal to other palates. It depends sometimes on how we view our own country and whether we want to see our country as being in a positive way or we want to see it in a negative light. The glass is always going to be either half full or half empty. It's really our perspective that defines how we see it. So I choose to acknowledge that we have a problem with crime, particularly violent crime, acknowledge the efforts we have been making and continue to make in that regard, but at the same time saying that that does not define us as a country, that there's a lot of development, a lot of young people doing very positive things, economy is moving, businesses are moving, education system is good, we're taking care of our seniors, a lot of positive exists in our country, and it is for us to determine which of the two sides of the country, if you will, we are going to say defines us. I choose to say that we're defined by the positives. And so that is my position, and if asked regionally, internationally, that would be my position. But just to be more precise with you, when we sit, for example, as foreign ministers, these issues will not arise, except in the context of, say, our conversation with the United States, to say to the United States that your guns are finding their way into the Caribbean. How can we partner with the United States to restrict that flow? But issues of who has higher crime rate than those would not be part of our remit as foreign ministers.
Okay, still on the issue of crime. Last year or earlier, 2 years back, probably, the police would have had some screening measures in place, both in Bastille Ferry Terminal. I'm not too sure about Charlestown, but there were screening measures there for persons traveling between the two islands. They reopened the ferry terminal, the new building and all of that, upgraded. The scanner there has stopped working, or it's not operational. What are you as the Premier doing to implement or basically curb the flow of guns between the two islands in terms of security measures between the two islands to alleviate that problem? Can you just give us some details or an update basically on how the situations with the vendors, how that's going? I know there was an issue recently where the police stepped in and people were complaining basically. That's an update with regards to that. The poverty alleviation program, is there any time frame to which those who would have applied would hear a response in terms of whether or not they were accepted, their applications were approved. And finally, sometime last month, there was an issue with regards to the water problem on the island. Has that problem been resolved? And in terms of the Wali project, can you just give us a bit of an update? I know you said the contractors would have gone back to St. Martin. Can you just give us an update with regards to how that project is moving and what time frame is the government looking at with regards to that in light of all these delays that would have occurred?
Okay, thank you very much. I wasn't aware that the scanner in St. Kitts, as you say, at the Bass State Ferry Terminal was not operational. If it's not, that certainly would be a matter for SCASPA and for the police to look at. What I do know from my own regular updates from the police is that they conduct regular checks and regular patrols, if you will, at the various ports, Seabridge and at the Charlestown port, and it is an ongoing process. In relation to the alleviation of the problems of guns, I think that you have realized that there has been an uptick in the number of guns taken off the street. Some may argue that that is a result of more guns being in the community, but I think that is also an indication that the police intelligence networks have been working and that the police have really been doing a good job in trying to interdict the flow of guns both in St. Kitts and in Nevis. So we will continue to work with the police closely to see how we can continue to make progress in this regard. The vendors in Charlestown, the police have indicated that they have issued the necessary letters. Some vendors who have been traditional vendors of food, the health department and the relevant government agencies have permitted those to continue in the usual way. We have said to them that it's a temporary arrangement, and we intend in the fullness of time to develop an area in Charlestown for vending, and we will expect at that time for all vendors to go there. Other people who want to come into town to vend and sell all manner of other things, we have said really they ought to find some place to do their vending, and there is space in the market. Continue to emphasize that there is space in the market, the public market, where they can go pay $5 a day, Mr. Sergeant, $5 a day, 5 EC dollars per day for a stall in the market to vend. And so why people don't want to do that and create an unfair environment in Charlestown? Because if a man is selling pumpkin or potato out on the street illegally, people go there and buy from him. They have no interest then in going into the market where people are in the market selling legally and doing things properly. So we have to try and encourage those responsible vendors who are doing what they need to do in accordance with the law, and discourage those who are bent on breaking the law. And those of you who walk in Charlestown on a weekend, you know what I'm talking about. Because there's hardly no sidewalk space because people have their blanket. They have all kind of things spread out. Selling CD, I see a man tie up some T-shirts like a clothesline across the square. Square that is there to honor our war dead, where the cenotaph is. And these are things I think that we need to discourage. We recognize that everybody needs to make a living, but we are saying let us be fair to everyone. And if there's a process in place, let us encourage everyone to adhere to that process. And that is, I think, a reasonable request for any government to make. We've also seen what happens in other islands when vending, street vending happens unchecked, and you end up with a real crisis, particularly in capital cities around the region. We do not wish to see that happen in Nevis, and we support the police 100% in that regard. The poverty alleviation time frame, I can't answer that question. As you know, it's a federal program. What I can say is the data has been collected. The data will now have to be verified for us to determine those who are legitimately entitled to a benefit under this program. I'm told that it will be soon. That's not a time frame I appreciate, but we expect that it will happen sooner rather than later. Water problem on the island, we never really had a water problem, save the usual problems of the dry weather conditions and the fact that we have to manage the water resource in a particular way. So with all the rains that we've had recently, I'm hoping that the problem has been somewhat alleviated, and I'm hopeful that we continue to get rain to replenish the aquifers that might have run dry, and to replenish people's personal cisterns at their homes, which also might have run dry. While the project update, I think I said as much as I could initially by indicating that the project is proceeding apace. You can see for yourself what has already been done, and we expect that as soon as the contractors return, which we're told should be shortly, they would finish that project in a few short weeks. So I would anticipate that that project will be ready very shortly for us. I think the initial construction period was aimed at about six weeks, and we have had some delays. I've explained those delays in previous press conferences, but I think that the public can now see the progress that we have made there, and we expect that the rest of it will be done in short order. Matter of fact, I believe the Deputy Premier told me that people are already asking if we could use it, and we had to indicate that, you know, we have to wait until it is completed.
Good morning, Mr. Premier. Good morning to everyone in the room. Andre Huey, SK Newsline at sknewsline.com. Premier Brantley, just a few questions. On the issue of crime and violence, I'm sure you're aware that there was a National Security Strategic Commission that was launched some time ago, headed by Mr. Dwyer-Stefan. Has there been any contact with the NIA on that regard, of having any meetings with the NIA or with anyone, any special groups on Nevis regarding the work of the Commission? The integrity in public life, in some circles, some people believe that while it's good legislation, it also has far-reaching consequences for persons desiring to serve in public life. And as you mentioned, it's not only for politicians but also for public servants. Do you think that this legislation will somehow deter persons who would want to serve in public life? Not that they have anything to hide necessarily, but
if they don't have anything to hide, why should deter?
Well, just the far-reaching effects of it, the personal reach, so to speak. The personal reach, so to speak, not so much to hide anything necessarily.
Okay.
So are you concerned that this might deter some would-be persons who would want to be involved in public life from doing so? On a more local level, I actually had some questions regarding street vending, but those are already answered. Cryptocurrency, that was something that the central bank raised some months ago. There's actually an ATM machine for Bitcoins, although it's not functioning, on St. Kitts. Are you concerned as Premier of Nevis of the rise of cryptocurrency in terms of the usage of it? I don't know how many people locally might be doing that, but seeing that it's unregulated, is that something that the NIA is paying attention to? And lastly, on the issue of, as Minister of Foreign Affairs, you probably have said this in the past, but what is the government's official position on Venezuela? There have been some rumblings on social media, fact or fiction, that somehow St. Kitts and Nevis will sort of support the U.S. in terms of sanctions against Venezuela. And considering the relationship that Venezuela has with St. Kitts and Nevis, what is the official position of the government on that? And are there any plans to somehow vote in favor of sanctions supporting the U.S. Against Venezuela? And how does the government manages maintaining a good relationship with the United States while at the same time supporting Venezuela?
Okay, thank you very much. The meeting of the commission headed by Mr. Astafan, we have not yet been contacted about any potential meeting with the NIA, but certainly we look forward to that work of that commission and to any meetings that they might seek to have with us. Integrity in public life, you say, has far-reaching consequences. I think that is true. You ask, will it deter people who want to serve? I don't think it should. I think that people who want to serve should understand that that is what they're coming to do, to serve. And like any other organization, there are parameters within which you serve. There are rules and regulations that govern your service. And I would hope that those who will come to serve would come with clean hands and clean hearts, and therefore have no concern about IPL legislation. Because if you're armed with your own integrity and you come to service with that integrity, then that should be not an issue at all. As I understand it, and the education is going to be coming for all of us, for the legal department, but as I understand it, for example, if you own a house and a car, and you declare that you own a house and a car, if 2 years from now you own 10 houses and 10 cars, then that might be a problem. How are you sustaining that on your income? But if you come and you have nothing to hide, as we often say, then I don't see what the problem should be or why it should deter somebody who's motivated to serve. Nevertheless, we are mindful that our public servants ought to have a say and ought to their views ought to be taken into account. And that is why, as I say, this government is open to listen to them, to determine if we can tweak the legislation in some way, if necessary, to ensure that the intrusive nature that some fear, that can be minimized. But let us just appreciate why we're trying to move in this direction. Because there have been too many accusations against politicians, against government ministers. You see a prominent secretary driving a nice car, wearing a nice suit, and people start to say, oh, you see them involved in this and them involved in that. So we want to put in place an infrastructure framework which will allow the public to have greater confidence in us, and a framework that will require us to conduct ourselves in a particular way. So that for those who might be tempted, this is something that will have you resist the temptation. Sometimes you go in the supermarket and you're tempted to take up a thing of chocolate. Consequences. You're caught on camera, you have an offense that you commit, a criminal offense. Sometimes the consequences are useful to prevent bad behavior. So we are saying that as a government, this is something we're committed to, and as a government, this is something that we are a path on which we are on. Cryptocurrency, I don't think is a secret. I have said that Nevis and the NIA is very interested in this whole new world of cyber currencies and the like, that we want to move in that direction. We want to develop a framework to take us forward. We have noted very carefully the views of the central bank, and those are views that are worth noting, but we all recognize that Nevis has quite a robust financial services sector, and we feel that this could be a good fit for us to provide a proper, well-regulated environment for crypto exchanges and the like to happen here. So it's a new world. I noted, for example, at the recently concluded United Nations General Assembly, the Prime Minister of Malta spoke quite eloquently to crypto, saying that it was the future, or the future is now, and crypto will define what happens in the space for trading, for buying goods and services, as the case may be. And frankly, if you travel now to many countries in the world, including the developments here, I see people now just scanning their phone or scanning whatever to pay for goods and services. It's becoming a cashless society. And I was surprised recently on American Airlines, I tried to buy a meal, and I was told, unless you have a credit card, you can't pay cash. So cash is no longer king. So, we're moving in that direction. The question for us in Nevis, St. Kitts, and the Caribbean, will we move or will we be left behind? And I think the NIA is prepared to move so that we are not left behind, because we understand that the first people in a space are always the ones to benefit most. That is why St. Kitts did so well with citizenship by investment. So by the time competition came now and the numbers fell off, we had accumulated gains over the 2 decades or so we had in advance of others. So my sense is that this is something we need to look at very seriously as another string to our economic bow, something that we need to look at. And so we have a small group already here, the NIA, who's looking at this very carefully. We have a consultant that we've hired to guide us on this, and these are matters that we're looking at. Position on Venezuela. It's interesting you say you saw some things online and you didn't know whether they were fact or fiction. I would imagine as a journalist you would tell me whether they're fact or fiction. But just like the stories we had on crime, people all over the place on these issues. What I will say to you is that there is a record that is always available of any countries voting on any particular issue, at the United Nations, at the OS, etc. So this is not like the secret ballot when we vote here in election time. This, when you vote on these issues, there's always a record. And I would invite the press to check that record. Not so much what people say or what people speculate, but to check the record of our voting pattern. That record will show that Venezuela has always been a good friend to St. Kitts and Nevis, and we've always had a good relationship with Venezuela. That is not to suggest that we are not concerned about reports of destabilization and reports of difficulties that are being experienced inside Venezuela. Our position, just like the CARICOM position, has been consistent, that we call on the parties in Venezuela to resolve the issues peacefully, through peaceful dialogue, with respect for the rule of law and respect for the rules of democracy. That is what we have been calling for. The United States is equally a good friend and we have engaged with the United States as well on these very difficult issues. I think the United States understands that the issue of Venezuela is a complex issue. It's a complex issue because when these countries were on their knees and our economies were on the verge of collapse because of high oil prices, it was Hugo Chavez that came to our rescue with the Petrocaribe arrangements throughout the region. When our sugar workers and sinkers were not paid, it is President Maduro who came to Bastia with check in hand to give those poor people some relief. Those are issues that are not easily dismissed when one is now dealing with difficulties in a country. So we have asked for dialogue. We have pressed, and CARICOM has responded positively to say that CARICOM is available to act as a broker, if you will, between the different parties inside Venezuela. And our position is one of balance, that between Venezuela and the United States, we ask for dialogue, we ask for peaceful resolution, and we certainly do not at all support the recent calls we've heard from Almagro, the Secretary General of the OAS, who was talking about he's not ruling out military intervention. The region is a region of peace, a zone of peace, and we want to maintain that peace in our region. So our position in St. Kitts Nevis, in my view, is a very middle-of-the-road position where we understand that as between friends, there are difficulties and that those friends must come together and dialogue at the table of friendship with the rule of law and the principles of democracy being our guiding principles. So I hope that gives you some sense of what our position has been. And this is a message that we've taken to Venezuela and a message that we've taken to the United States and Canada and other members of the so-called Lima group who have been pressing for a hard line on Venezuela. So that is where we are on that, and we're trying to navigate our way through difficult and turbulent waters, but to navigate our way which stays true to the principles that guide St. Kitts and Nevis and our foreign policy. Any other questions?
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I want to touch on the Four Seasons. You spoke about the renovations that are happening at the Four Seasons Resort. Now, I am pleased, and I'm sure that the people of Nevis are happy with the renovations that are happening. But we know that Four Seasons is a part of the tourism sector. And in the Caribbean, we are prone to serious natural disasters. We have seen last year the power from Hurricanes Irma and Maria. And we know that the Four Seasons Resort is responsible for generating over 40% of the revenue to our country. So what if a hurricane or a natural disaster is to hit Nevis and we lose that 40% or 50%? What will the people of Nevis look to sort of replace that 40%? So, and also, even look at Dominica. Dominica is in the process, or maybe they have already lost Ross University, and that university is responsible, for I think over 50% of the revenue. So, my question, Mr. Premier, are there plans being outlined to help? So let's say we lose the Four Seasons. Do we, the people of Nevis, are we going to be assured that if we lose the Four Seasons, which is responsible for over 40%, will something come in place to replace the Four Seasons? We just can't look at bringing hotels and all of that, because tourism and natural disasters, they can't go together. We see what hurricanes can do to the tourism sector. So we, the people of Nevis, we want to be assured that something else can be put in place. So even if we are hit by a natural disaster and we lose the Four Seasons Resort, we can still continue to live good lives. Thank you.
Okay, I think that you raise an important issue, but it's an issue for which there's really no logical answer. You live here, you understand that the Four Seasons is a major, as you say, 40%. I'm not sure if those numbers are correct, but nevertheless significant contributor to our local economy. And you rightly characterize storms and the like as natural phenomena. They're natural disasters. Natural disasters hit, as you see around the world. You saw an earthquake in Haiti. You saw hurricanes in Dominica. Countries such as ours, which are naturally vulnerable countries, we suffer. We struggle to recover. And I don't know that any government, any premier standing here could tell you if a Category 5 storm were to hit Nevis, then of course we have a plan to replace 40% of the income. That is really, in my view, just not possible. That is the reality that we have even now in Dominica, where Dominica, a year after, has still not recovered. We just need, I think, and that's why when we talk about resilience, we talk about building better, we talk about economic resilience. Now, what are some of the things that the government has been doing? We have recognized that others have been pushing very hard on finding additional hotels. And that is certainly something that we too would like to have in Nevis. Hotels of the right quality, of course, in Nevis. But we recognize that all hotels, all tourism, because it's not just the hotels, the ability to fly. If your airport is gone, your roads are gone, your bridges are gone, you have the same problem. The infrastructure can be wiped out. So the tourism industry with a single storm can be wiped out. And so we recognize that we have to diversify out of tourism as well. And that is why you've heard a lot from me about geothermal energy. That is why you've just heard about the cryptocurrency and the cyber currency exchanges that we're looking at here for the island of Nevis. That is why we have promoted financial services, and I've indicated in a meeting that we recently had with financial service providers that I would like to double the size of our revenue within the next 5 years, within this term. So we are not unmindful of the risks, but planning for those risks in light of the size of our island and our capacity is really difficult. And so we are trying to not have the mono economy of tourism, but rather to look now at other things that we can do, other things. Because even if we talk about agriculture, storm destroys that too. So it's not even you could say, well, you're going to diversify into agriculture because one massive storm can wipe out your agriculture, as it did with Dominica, wipe out your infrastructure, wipe out your tourism sector. So we're now looking at things like cyber currency, we're looking at geothermal energy, and we're looking to see how we can expand our financial services sector, because that, I think, is important. And, I mean, I talk about agriculture, even things like manufacturing. We have not been able to attract manufacturing because of the high cost of labor, but even if we were to attract some manufacturing, that too is gone in a storm. So oftentimes we hear the discussion. It's an important discussion, don't get me wrong, but we hear the discussion about, oh, you depend on tourism, what else you can do? And the question sometimes I ask is, what else can you do? We're not blessed with our vast natural resources. We don't have oil, we don't have gold, we don't have diamonds. So what else can you do but to leverage what you do have? We have sun, sea, and sand that we use for tourism, and we try with financial services, cyber currencies and the like to leverage our human capacity, our intellectual capacity to bring relief to our people. So that is the best I can offer you in terms of a response. I don't know that any leader in any of these small vulnerable countries can guarantee that there is a plan that if a Category 5 storm or earthquake or something of that were to hit, that we can tell our people, no problem, we can just replace that income in some other way. And we're not sitting on reserves in our countries that should allow us to do that either. So it is a difficulty, and a difficulty that we continue to raise.
Mr. Premier, water. Mr. Premier, you mentioned earlier that Friday the NIA will become the owners of Nevis Water once again. We will no longer be paying the $50,000 a month to BEAD. So can you confirm to us as of Friday?
150,000
a month.
EC.
So
150,000 US per month.
So,
okay, I thought it was 50,000 per month. I'm trying to get the numbers clear.
So, well, it's a lot of money.
Hang on a second. Okay. All right, the number I had was 50,000 US per month. That's the number I had.
It's now 150,000.
No. I'm saying the number I had was 50,000 US per month.
Per month.
Yes.
All right.
So we'll stick with that until any other.
Okay. So we would no longer be paying that.
Yes.
So can you confirm, as the owners of Nevis Water, who would no longer be paying $50,000 a month, can you confirm as of Friday the water bills will go back to normal.
But that question was asked. That question was asked and answered.
Huh? So as of Friday, it's back to normal then. That's good. As of Friday, the water bill should go down.
I think, Mr. Hanley, the question was asked by the observer.
And what was the answer?
But you were here. What was the answer?
So as of Friday, we're confirming that now. Yes.
What I indicated to the reporter from the Observer was that we can't yet say that. We have not done a financial analysis. Because recall that now all the costs associated with the maintenance of the wells will pass to us.
All right.
So we will have to be the ones to maintain the wells, the pumps, and all of that. So the infrastructure is not without cost.
Okay.
Right? So I can't.
But it shouldn't go up anymore. It should.
Well, I don't anticipate. We did a water rate increase, I think, at the start of this year. April 1st, it went into effect, of 30%. Consistent with our commitments to the CDB on the CDB loan for the water project. We don't anticipate at this point that should go up anymore.
Okay. So in the future, hopefully we'll go down. Let's focus on going down. Poverty alleviation program.
Yes.
Mr. Premier, your question was asking here and you said that's a federal program and you don't know when it will be rolled out. Well, last month you confirmed to me last month that it will be rolled out before next year. And Mr. Premier, it's a federal program and you are a part of the federal government. So you sit in federal cabinet, so surely you should have some information to bring back to us on when that program will be rolled out. So saying coming soon and you don't know. Let's not go down that road, Mr. Premier. We are depending on you to be the eyes of Nevis in that federal cabinet down there. And we are looking forward to that poverty alleviation program, $500 per month. Hopefully by next month you will be able to tell us exactly when that money will be rolled out on the island of Nevis for families that would be seeking that support. Okay, hurricane relief, Mr. Premier. I see some videos circulating online with some residents of St. Kitts giving testimonies on how they received their roof, how they got their roof fixed and how they received support from the federal government. Is that a federal program as well? And if it is a federal program, when will that be rolled out on the island of Nevis? Because we had a hurricane up here as well too, Mr. Premier. We had some damage here and there, fruit trees, farmers. Farmers lose a lot of crops, you know, they lose a lot of money in their farms. So we're depending on you as well to find out if that is a federal program and when it will be rolled out on the island of Nevis. And Four Seasons. Mr. Premier, I got the information that we have a number of workers at Four Seasons getting 1 and 2 days per week. Working 1 and 2 days per week. I understand they have construction down there as well, but 1 and 2 days per week with those workers who have families to feed, children to take to school, mortgage to pay. They must be traumatized at this time, Mr. Premier, because I would be traumatized if I'm working in an institution that's telling me now I'm going to be paid 1 or 2 days per week and I have a car to pay, kids to take to school, mortgage to pay. I will be pulling my ears now. So what support is the government providing for those workers at Four Seasons who are getting 1 or 2 days per week at this time? Surely we must have a program in place for those workers to provide some support for those workers, Mr. Premier. And, I understand as well you had a board of directors had a meeting with some managers at Four Seasons. And in that meeting, as we normally say in local language, I understand a member of the board of directors bust up some bad word on the managers down there, the Nivision managers. And the managers were so horrified, they couldn't say anything. They were so shocked that this, what you call it, board, a member of a board of director of such standing would speak to them like that. Bust up some bad word on them in a room there. And you are the Minister of Tourism, Mr. Premier, so that is unacceptable on the island. When will you keep a meeting with the Board of Directors to let them know that on the island of Nevis, we do not support that type of language? We would like our workers to be treated fairly, and they should show respect to our workers. So when will you have a meeting with them to let them know? Because maybe they don't know. And you as the Minister of Tourism should have a meeting with them and let them know. I recommend that. And school leavers. We have a number of school leavers out there at this time, and a number of them have been asking me for jobs, like where they should go to find jobs and so forth. And so I sent a number of them to step there, but I send them to send applications to the Ministry of Labor, the Human Resource Department. But I want you to confirm to me now, because they're asking me questions. Where exactly, what they need to do, what exactly they need to do, and what documentation they need, where they need to go to get a job at this time. I would recommend we keep a job fair or something for school leavers. Keep them in one room here so you let them know exactly where to go and so. So if you could speak on that, that would be nice. And that's it for now, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hanley. The day has grown long. The school leavers, that it continues, of course, to be a matter of concern to the government. The need to provide jobs. We understand that. The government can only employ so many people. That is why we have been pushing the private sector, pushing small business development. I spoke of the work of SEDU in trying to encourage more small businesses. And I would think that the school leavers who have a business idea can also step forward and we partner with them in that regard. You mentioned a job fair. We in fact had a job fair, I think, just about 2 months ago, through the Ministry of Labor. So perhaps you would have missed that, but certainly we had a job fair right here, I think, on the grounds here of Social Security, where, again, we recognize that that's an issue and we're trying to deal with it. In relation to the bad word story that you brought, it would be helpful sometimes, I think, as these press conferences are intended to be serious matters where we discuss issues that we can speak to with some level of authenticity. I, as Premier of Nevis and as the Minister of Tourism, have not heard any such story about any meeting at Four Seasons and what you have described. And I think we have to be careful to verify what we are talking about before we come on this type of platform to speak to matters that may not in fact be so. I don't know if it's so or not. I'm simply saying that I have no report. What I would say is that we as a government will insist that we respect each other and that persons, whether at Four Seasons or TDC or anywhere else, respect their workers. And I would say to any worker that if anybody were to employ such language to them, then it still remains, I believe, a criminal offense, and they should report them to the police. All right? It is not for me as Premier, I feel, to go and teach people how to talk to other people. I believe that all these companies have their culture, but if people are engaging in, as you colloquially refer to it, as bad words to other people, then let them go and speak to the police about these matters. But I'm not aware, Mr. Hanley, of any such occurrence. Nothing has come to me about it at all. You mentioned Four Seasons workers getting 1 or 2 days. It is regrettable. It is something that we continue to grapple with. A few have already reached out to speak to us. But I want to say something that might be unpopular. Other hotels are closed altogether. Golden Rock is closed. Montpellier is closed. Only last year was Nisbet open through the low season for the first time. I say that to say that there are other hotel workers on the island who are not even getting 1 or 2 days. They're getting no days at all. I say that because we on this island understand the nature of our tourism industry. We understand that like in the biblical days, there'll be days of plenty and then there'll be days of famine, because that is the nature of the industry that people work in. I continue to beg and beseech our people, when there are days of plenty, save your money, because you know that the days of famine are going to come. Don't wait until the days of famine come and then say, but I got children and I got, because you knew you always had children. So when the service charge is at its highest, during Christmas, during January, during February, try and put a little something aside, because you know as sure as night follows day that come September, come October, the earnings are going to drop precipitously. It's the same for the government, because you asked about a relief. Could we provide some relief? The government makes a significant amount of its revenue from tourism. So when the numbers drop in the off season, naturally the government's revenue drops significantly as well. So I am calling on people as I continue to be responsible. Not to suggest that they're not feeling the pain of 1 or 2 days, because I agree with you, anybody getting 1 or 2 days or no days is going to feel some pain. But for people to start to be responsible, not when they get the extra heavy paycheck in January, they go buy coats. Or they head by TDC and say, well, long time I'm watching this big 40-inch to replace the 20-inch screen TV that I have. Let me get it now. And not bear in mind that come August, September, the difficult months, that there will be a downturn. So I think that all of us have an obligation to encourage our people to be responsible. And when you make a little extra money, try and put a little something aside, knowing that harder days are going to come, because every year we have the same cycle. Every year we have the same cycle. Four Seasons is saying to me, they use the language, I think in the thing I read, of festive. They say they're looking forward to a festive season. Can't find the language right now, but the festive season, as we know, normally describes the Christmas into the New Year season. And that is the era where they make a lot of money. They say they're looking at a festive season, and I'm saying which will continue into a strong Q1 of 2019. So they themselves are telescoping, and when I talk to the hoteliers, they tell me they make their money even at the hotel level, right? November, December, January, February, March. By April, you start to taper off. So if the hotels are telling me that and they budget accordingly, then our people who work in the sector ought to follow suit, because they know that each year this is what happens. So do we have a relief program in place? Truth is, we don't. Government doesn't have money to provide relief in these situations. What we can do, as we spoke to some people, that some are asking, well, is there an opportunity for some part-time employment? We'll see if we can assist in that regard. But I will also say to the people who are now suffering because they only get in 1 or 2 days, to really see if they can hold straight. The reason I'm saying that is because we understand that it's going to be temporary. The Four Seasons has indicated that they will not close during the construction period. Had they closed, people would not be getting any days at all. We said, do not close. Let us see how we can work, keep the resort open and do the construction at the same time, which they have done. The result of that is that the guests are down, the number of clients they have is down considerably, and so they have said, listen, we have to limit people 1, 2, maybe 3 days a week. But it is only for a short period of time, because the expectation is that by November, when the hotel now ramps up again. See, they're already talking about Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is in November, I believe. Right? 6 weeks. So as the hotel ramps up again, that we expect that people are going to be back in good standing. But when they get back in good standing, I'm praying and beseeching that they save their money. That they put something aside, just like our forefathers used to do. When your grandma used to go down and she bosom and take out the dollar. She got it down there a long time, you know. She's saving it. She may not have had a bank account, but she understood the value of saving something, because we always hear about saving for a rainy day. In our situation, maybe we reverse that and say we save for the drought. Right? But either way, we need that culture again to be part of our national psyche. And we need to encourage our people, because too many of our people, they make 500, they spend 500. So the minute a little sickness comes, the minute a little something comes, a little shock, they up and down say, Lord, 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 help me. And I often say, well, if you're making 500, then see if you can spend a little less than the 500. And even if it's $5 each week, each month, you put it aside. Because you know sickness will come, a rainy day will come. That is the nature of life. And we need to encourage our people in this way to do the right thing. So we feel for the people, of course, who are affected. I should also say that I'm told that some have been absorbed into the construction workforce as well. So that will provide relief for some people, because as part of not being released, they absorb some. So we have divisions down there who work at the hotel ordinarily, who engage in some of the construction activity. You asked about the poverty alleviation program, and you always asking for precise dates. And I really don't have a precise date. My statement from the last occasion that before the end of the year, that holds. And that is why I'm saying we're now in October. I'm told that the verification process will now start, and before the end of the year. That's why I use the language of shortly. But I don't want to tell you, because I know you, of all the members of the press, will hold me responsible and hold me accountable. If I told you the 15th of next month and it didn't happen, you'd have a headline saying so. So I prefer to say that it is being rolled out, the preliminary information has been gathered, that information will be verified, and then we take it from there. All right? So I'm sorry, I can't give you a precise date. Hurricane relief, you say roof repairs, you saw some testimonials in St. Kitts, and it appears we want to know if it's a federal program or a local program. No repairs, as far as I'm aware, of roofs were done in Nevis, so that would suggest to me that it was a St. Kitts program being done over there. Right? I think in Nevis we have tried to respond as best as we could as the NIA to the demands and the needs here. You mentioned farmers. We were cognizant of farmers, and I do know that there was a federal program where monies were made available at the Development Bank for farmers and fishers to get grants and get loans at very low interest to try and assist them. But the roof repair program, I think the NIA has done the best that it could in the circumstances with the limited resources that are available to us. So that program, as far as I'm aware, was not a federal program. It was rolled out in St. Kitts, and the good people of St. Kitts benefited from it. Just as we hope that the good people of Nevis will benefit from programs we do in Nevis from time to time. I believe those are the questions you asked, Mr. Hanley, and that is as much as I can say on those matters at this point in time. Okay, it is now midday, the hour has grown late. I want to thank all of you for coming, the members of the press for engaging, and the numbers of questions that we've had. I'm very happy. I trust and hope that these sessions continue to provide some value to the members of the public, and we look forward to seeing you in another month's time as we try and update again as to what is happening. Friday, we have the handing over the wells from Bede. I think that's significant development in our life and time here in Nevis. And I invite one and all to be there at Madden's at 10 a.m. And then, I believe, Minister Evelyn, you have a big march for the seniors on Friday as well. We ask people to be a part of that and to go out and support the events for Teachers Week, for Seniors Month, and for, Postal Week, Teachers Month, and Seniors Month. Thank you all for being a part of this, and we look forward to engaging with you again in the future. Thank you. God bless you.